Daly City, just a shy south of San Francisco, home to around 30,000 Filipinos, one of the largest Filipino communities in the United States.
So what do I know about Filipinos in Daly City? I know they are the biggest group in Daly City. According to the 2000 census, there's 32%, which is 32,720 Filipinos. And again, it's the biggest group in Daly City. So there's a lot of Filipinos where I work, which is here in the admin building at State. So I talked to them, and I know that a lot of them have houses in the Philippines. They're starting to build houses from the money they get here. And I make some bomb-ass lumpia.
With the Filipino population at around 45,000 in 1970, they have grown to a population 7 times that of around 3 million as of 2010. One can ask, how did the Filipino community grow to be how it is now? Upward mobility, the desire to better oneself, their families, and their community. At the time, the Philippines was underdeveloped structurally and economically, and everyone desires to better themselves. Thus, many Filipinos came to the United States in search for financial stability. This is the result of the push and pull effect. The instability of a country will push those wanting to find a way to a better life, and a country with the resources to do so will pull them in. This is a common practice for many people of different countries, but unlike the Chinese and Japanese, the Filipinos did not have a strong desire to return to their country, but rather chose to make the United States their home as well.
Pumunta ako ng Amerika dahil yung boyfriend ko naririto since 1958. After 5 years, umuwi siya sa Pilipinas, nagpakasal kami. Tapos after 5 months, sumunod ako rito sa United States. So, after 2 years, nagkameron kami ng anak, isang babae. Pagkatapos, nagtatrabaho naman siya sa isang nasa army siya, napadestino sa Germany. After 10 years, nagpa-discharge. Tapos nagkasama-sama na kami mag-anak. Dito kami nakatira before sa mission. Kasi mumura ng apartment doon. Pagkatapos, lahat ng sa bahay included. Ilaw, tubig, basura, kasama na. Kaya kami nakaipon. Nung kami makaipon, binibuild itong Daly City. Nag-uumpisa ang mga bahay. Boom na boom noon. 1970. So meron na kaming, kung meron kang 2,000, makakabili ka na ng bahay. Kasi mura pa lang ang down payment noon. Kaya dito kami napadpad sa Daly City.
A lot of Filipinos during the early 1950s did reside in San Francisco. It wasn't really that expensive to live there at the time, to get an apartment, and a lot of the utilities were included with the pay already. And so a lot of Filipinos created this community, and for a while they had their own version of Chinatown they called Little Manila. And unfortunately that no longer exists because of gentrification throughout the years, but a lot of blocks were named in streets after famous Filipino heroes and individuals that have made an impact in the Filipino community in the Philippines. And through those years, people were able to save up money and to purchase houses when it was, time to get out of that place. And a lot of them really took the advertisement that Daly City was given out, which was a really great neighborhood and new houses, but it wasn't expensive. It was very affordable. A couple of $1,000s could get you a house. Down payment was not really that high either. So people were able to, get a house for a really good price. And specifically for Filipinos that have just migrated, they don't want to spend a lot of money. So Daly City was really a good place to be, and I have a lot of relatives that have resided in Daly City for decades and don't have to pay a single penny anymore, and the value of their homes just get higher and higher. So it was just a kind of like a good move at the time to be in Daly City.
We got married in 1968, and then my son was born in 1969. And then first we were in San Francisco, but then later on, when we bought our house in Daly City, then we stay doon na kami sa Daly City kasi unang-una marami kasing Pilipino, and then malapit kami sa lahat ng like the church, the schools, malapit kami doon. So we decided to stay here in Daly City, and up until now we're still here. We are both retired. I work at the Bank of America, and then we had a business. He came here as a tourist, so before that, kasi nung nagpunta siya rito, he thought that he will just be staying here, but then he na-find out niya na he wants to stay here permanently, so he decided to because he has a degree in accounting, and so what he did was nag-apply siya as a third preference, because before that pwede kang mag-apply ng third preference dito. So he hired a lawyer, tapos nag-file siya ng third preference. And then the lawyer na he hired, he said that if your girlfriend will come here as a third preference, if she will apply, then she will have a hard time. You will wait for 5 more years, because before, pag nag-apply ka ng third preference, you have to wait for like 3-5 years to be but if she can come here as a tourist, if she could come here as it would be easy, because you already will have a green card, and then you can marry her.
Third preference is kind of like a working visa, and skilled professionals from the Philippines would move here and work for the United States, and they're almost treated as if they are naturalized citizens. So they're able to bring and petition family members from the Philippines and bring them back here. And what was common back then is to wait before you get married, because these skilled workers under third preference would go ahead and come here and then wait a couple of months and then marry their fiancés. So then it's seen as if they fell in love when he was already here, so then they could actually petition them very easily. And that is done out of love and real love, but also it's very common for Filipinos to just have kind of like a war bride version, which is where they just marry off a skilled worker that is already in the United States, so they can just get a girl to come here, and they could go ahead and just divorce later on. But it's very common. I know a couple of relatives who have done that, but it's not always the case, but it is sometimes the case where they just marry off the skilled workers so they could go ahead and petition a random individual into the United States.
See, that's why when I came here, the lawyer said, okay, you have to wait for 3 more months so that the immigration won't say that, oh, you came here to marry we'll just pretend that you met your husband here. And that's the story.
Making the United States a second home, first they will need to find a place to settle: San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York. But as time passed, Daly City became the main focus. But of course, along the way towards the American dream, we faced discrimination through society as well as policies.
So it's really interesting to see how policy plays an effect in how the Filipinos came into America, and particularly Daly City. One policy that we brought to light in our paper was the 1990 Immigration Act, which actually gave citizenship to World War II veteranos, which gave them the opportunity to petition for their family members back in the Philippines to come over to the United States. And that caused quite a bit of population increase in the United States, particularly in the Peninsula Bay Area. Another smaller policy that we brought to light in our paper was the Ellis Acts that were taking effect in San Francisco. So basically what you had in Kearny Street was what was formerly known as Manila Town. And after all the pretty much Filipino bachelors were forced to move out of their residences in old Manila Town, they basically were forced to move down to Excelsior, which is near Daly City. And a good significant amount of them moved into Daly City as well. But I think the most important policy to really remember is actually the Immigration and Nationalization Act of 1965, which actually gave a lot of Filipinos opportunities to come and work in America.
Seton Medical Center is a great example to why Daly City is so populated with Filipinos. Even in the 1900s, up until just recently in 2013, we have seen many recruitments of Filipino nurses from the Philippines being recruited to the United States to work for Americans. Even in the early years of World War II, we have been seeing Filipino nurses working for World War II American soldiers, and it is not unusual in the Philippines to have colleges and universities catering towards these nurses that are educated in the Philippines but are educated for recruitment in the United States. And in the 1960s, when Seton Medical Center was being built, it was definitely a big opportunity for these Filipino nurses being recruited from the Philippines to stay in that area. And at the time, that was when the Filipino community was just starting to really grow. And having Seton Medical Center in the middle of all of that in Daly City, it was just another opportunity to really provide employment for these Filipinos, and definitely these Filipinos that came from the Philippines as nurses. And that really contributed greatly to why Daly City is such a big community for Filipinos now.